今天要分享的改编故事是卧薪尝胆，希望能在学习英语的路上给你带来收获。你的每个点赞和订阅都是对我莫大的鼓励。那么，咱们开始吧。
In 494 BC, the kingdom of Yu lay crushed. The king of Yu, Gojian, had gambled and lost against the neighboring kingdom of Wu. His army was shattered, his land was occupied, and his people were terrified. He was cornered on a mountain, with no army, no food, and no hope. He faced a single, brutal choice: die with a sword in his hand, or surrender his very soul. Gojian chose to live. He sent his minister, Wen Zhong, into the enemy camp with a plan that reeked of desperation. Wen Zhong bribed the corrupt Wu official, Bo Pai, with gold and the most beautiful women from Yu. Bo Pai, greedy and influential, whispered in the king of Wu's ear, "Accept their surrender, my king. It's better to have a living servant than a dead enemy." Fu Chai, the proud king of Wu, agreed. He spared Gojian's life, but the price was everything. Gojian was not just defeated, he was erased. He and his wife were taken back to the kingdom of Wu, not as guests, but as slaves. Their new home was a crude stone hut, built next to Fu Chai's father's tomb. It was damp, cold, and filled with the smell of death. Their job? To tend the royal horses. Every single day, Gojian, a king by blood, would step out into the muddy yard, take the reins of Fu Chai's horse, and lead the way. He became a servant. He mucked out the stables. He stood silently as the nobles of Wu laughed and pointed, spitting on the ground where he stood. The ultimate humiliation came when Fu Chai fell ill. To prove his loyalty, Gojian actually offered to taste the king's excrement to help diagnose the sickness. He did it. He smiled, and declared the king would soon be well. He had sunk so low, there was no lower to go. He wore his shame like a second skin. After 3 years of this living death, Fu Chai, believing his former enemy was now a broken, loyal dog, made a fatal mistake. He let Gojian go home. Gojian returned to a kingdom in ruins. The land was barren, the people were poor, and the spirit of Yu was dead. But inside the man who returned, something was different. The humiliation had not broken him, it had forged him into a blade of pure, cold steel. He was no longer just a king, he was a man possessed by a single, burning thought: revenge. He knew that comfort was his enemy. It would soften his rage and dull his memory. So, he built himself a simple, rough bed. No soft furs, no silk sheets. He slept on a pile of dry, prickly firewood. The discomfort kept him awake. It kept him angry. And then, there was the gall. He took the gallbladder of an animal, that bitter, vile sack, and hung it from the rafters of his room. Every single morning, before he ate, he would stand up and reach for it. He would touch his tongue to its bitter surface. The taste was horrible, a physical shock that would jolt his entire body. As the bitterness flooded his mouth, he would ask himself the same question every single day, Go Jian, have you forgotten the humiliation of Hui Ji? Have you forgotten the stone hut? Have you forgotten tasting the filth of your enemy? This was his ritual. This was his fuel. While he slept on hardship and tasted bitterness, he worked. He didn't just rule from a throne, he went into the fields and worked the land with his farmers, his hands blistered and calloused. His wife, a former queen, wove cloth with the village women. He ate plain food, wore simple clothes, and lived with a single purpose. He put his kingdom on a war footing, but the war was not just with swords. It was with plows and looms. He enacted a plan called 10 years of gathering strength, 10 years of teaching. He rewarded farmers for growing more food. He passed laws encouraging large families, offering rewards for every child born, because he knew he needed more people, more soldiers. He honored the dead and cared for the orphans, weaving the people of Yu into a single, unbreakable family. He welcomed wise men from other kingdoms, picking their brains for any advantage. His ministers, Wen Zhong and the great general family, were his right and left hands. Family trained a new kind of army, disciplined and fierce. They built up their navy and forged new weapons. While Yu grew strong in secret, Go Jian made sure Wu grew weak. He played the long game. He sent gifts to Fu Chai, flattering him, pushing him to build grand palaces and exhaust his own people. He sent the most beautiful woman in the land, Shishir, to be Fu Chai's concubine. Her job was to drip poison into his ear and distract him from the rising threat in the south. Fu Chai, blinded by his own power, listened to the flattery. He ignored his greatest general, Wu Zishu, who warned him again and again, kill Go Jian. He is not a dog, he is a wolf in waiting. But Fu Chai, arrogant and deaf to the truth, finally forced Wu Zishu to commit suicide. With his last breath, Wu Zishu said, "Plant a tree on my grave so it can be used for a coffin when Wu falls." For 20 long years, Go Jian waited. He planned. He prepared. He slept on his wood and tasted his bitterness. Then, in 482 BC, Fu Chai made his move. He marched his main army north to try and become the top dog of all the Chinese kingdoms, leaving his capital vulnerable. The moment had come. Go Jian struck. His army, hardened by a decade of purpose, fell upon the Wu capital like a thunderstorm. They killed the crown prince and shattered the Wu defenses. Fu Chai rushed back, but it was too late. The wolf was at the door. The war dragged on for a few more years, but the end was never in doubt. In 473 BC, the armies of Yu surrounded Fu Chai on his own sacred mountain, a perfect mirror of the day, 20 years before, when Fu Chai had cornered Go Jian. Fu Chai, beaten and humiliated, sent messengers asking for mercy. He begged to be allowed to live, just as he had once let Go Jian live. He offered to become a slave, just as Go Jian had been. Family, the iron-willed general of you, stood before Go Jian. For 20 years, he said, you did not sleep. For 20 years, you tasted gall. Do not forget why. Go Jian looked at his old enemy, now broken at his feet. He saw himself, 20 years ago. But he was not Fu Chai. He sent his final message, heaven gave you to Wu, and Wu refused it. Now heaven gives Wu to you. I dare not refuse. Fu Chai, the proud king who had once made a man eat bitterness, could not live with the taste in his own mouth. He covered his face with his sleeve, ashamed to face the world or the ghost of his loyal general, and he took his own life. Go Jian, the slave who became a king, stood victorious. He went on to become the last great overlord of the spring and autumn period, a man whose name would echo through history. But here's the thing. The story of sleeping on wood and tasting gall isn't really about ancient wars and dead kings. It's sitting here in this room with you right now. You have your own mountain you're cornered on. You have your own version of that bitter gall. Maybe it's a failure you can't forget, a dream that slipped away, a voice that told you that you weren't good enough. The question Go Jian asks himself every morning, that same question is hanging in the air in front of you. What is the humiliation you are trying to forget? What is the goal you want so badly it keeps you awake at night, that piece of wood, that bitter taste? It was just a tool. It was a way to make sure he never forgot. You don't need a literal sword hanging over your bed. You just need to find your own version of it. A picture on your wall. A note on your mirror. A single word that pulls you back when you feel like giving up. The story isn't about a king who lived thousands of years ago. It's about the fire you choose to carry inside you. It's about what you do when no one is watching. When the only person you have to prove something to is the person you see in the mirror. Go Jian didn't win because he was stronger. He won because his desire was stronger than his comfort. The only question now is, what's your gall? And are you brave enough to taste it?
下集请移步主页观看。